Welcome to Invest Insights. I'm Abby Malone. I'm joined today by Shaheewa Jarrett Gelin, the founder and president of the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce. Shaheewa, thank you so much for being here today.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive in. You sit as the founder and president of the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce and have been a practicing attorney for 20 years. How have you used your extensive experience within the legal sector to be creative in how you support your members?
Wow, you mentioned that 20 years, and although I feel very young and vibrant, right? I guess it has been that long. I found my legal skills extremely helpful. One, because I'm coming from a completely different perspective. You know, chamber leaders tend to come from that nonprofit executive director space. So I think
Right.
my perspective is different. I also bring obviously a different skill set that helps to support my members. So I would say one, I was a litigator. So I was in court
Mm,
multiple times a week. So obviously my advocacy skills, my ability to communicate persuasively was very important. And in this position, that's everything, right? Because as the chamber leader, you have to develop relationships. And then obviously, as we're advocating for policies that are friendly, that push equity and invite inclusion into spaces that they weren't before, you have to understand how to persuade different audiences. So just as, you know, walking into a courtroom, it may be that you have to persuade a judge or jury.
mm,
In this instance, I have to persuade, government agencies. I'm talking to people in corporate America that are running large corporations as well, but also having to communicate persuasively with my members. I'd also say my technical skills, being highly analytical, being able to analyze processes, rules, and the implementation process of programs, like at each step in the process
mm.
is critical. And that's what we do as lawyers. We break down that process. We're able to issue spot, which is also critical as a lawyer. So we hone in on the issues, but then we pivot to solutions. That's who we are as lawyers, to say, okay, here's something we've identified. How can we fix it? And so I found that my skills as a litigator, are well suited for my current position. And I think my members realize that because they're comfortable talking to a lawyer. And, what do we do? We solve problems. So what do you think about this? I'm having this issue in my company. So on the advocacy note, as well as, being able to provide that personal consultation to my members is important. And I think a skill set that I have gotten from my legal practice over the years.
Those are certainly some important skills. Diversity in leadership has been a serious topic of discussion nationwide. What are some innovative ways the Chamber is helping to foster and promote a business environment in Broward County where diversity takes precedent and continues to thrive?
A good question. When I founded the chamber, a very important goal and focus was to promote a diverse business environment where anyone could thrive. And I hear that term innovative. And I know for some people it's, sexy, it's kind of associated with tech and science. But as a lawyer, I kind of go back to tried and true ways that we've seen change occur in history, historically. So for me, the only way for change, longstanding change with regard to certain issues to occur is to face them head on, to address them directly. And that means addressing, rules, policies, procedures, and laws that have systematically been a barrier to equity and inclusion, which makes sense from my perspective. Once you change those rules, laws, and procedures, you then can get the result that you want. I also think it's important to engage the people in that process because people interact with all four of the things I just mentioned, those rules, policies, procedures, and laws. And have some of those tough conversations that we may not want to have, but that's where you get those long-term results. It's funny, as I talked about it earlier, coming from that different perspective. I've worked with people in government who've done supply diversity as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I talk about breaking down that process, the evaluation process, the outreach process, what you even write in the RFPs, they say to me, I didn't think about it from that way. So it may not seem innovative and sexy in the way that most people use a term, but for people in the industry, I bring a different perspective because I'm coming from the outside. I'd lastly say, with regard to ensuring there's diversity in the supply diversity, et cetera, I make sure to show or demonstrate how my businesses are contributing to the community. Small Black businesses are creating jobs, they're performing community service, obviously they're a tax base. And so showcasing that is, sending a different message and creating a truer narrative that then is kind of, shaking up and rattling the status quo. I also make sure to have my list of my members, their service and products whenever I'm meeting with the corporate or government agency. And lastly, I'm attending conferences that chambers don't typically attend to create those relationships and create new opportunities with city managers and other conventions, corporate conventions, to put my chamber in a place where commerce and business is being discussed.
Your chamber is one of the leading forces in addressing and resolving the lingering challenges facing the Black community in Broward County. In regards to lack of accessible funding for Black owned businesses, what are some creative solutions the Chamber has implemented or advocated for to mitigate this problem?
Okay, so we have been creative in some ways and practical in other ways. So I'd say that first, obviously, access to funding to start your company and to be able to continue your company is a major issue with regard to there being some systemic problems in the industry. But I will say this, I kind of tackle it on two different fronts. First, the facts are the facts. This is what's happening, and I have to get that capital, that loan, that line of credit to my small business owner. So yes, we have relationships with traditional banks and bankers to do that. Working with CDFIs is also an option. But during the PPP, I had to get very creative during the pandemic, and when the PPP came out, had to get really creative in trying to find access to capital for my members. So I started working with National Development Corp, that was there long before the pandemic, that worked with small Black businesses and women-owned businesses that understood that market. And we've had great success there. Also advocating for our local Black bank, Black-owned bank, to, they were heavily focused on housing, which is important. It's a wealth building avenue, but advocating for them also to get in the small business space, make those loans, do that line of credit. And we had some success there. Also, getting our small business owners to understand that working with local small banks is where you can have that personalized relationship. They have a bit more flexibility. So in advocating with those small banks to say, well, what is it you can do? Do you have more flexibility? And then getting our members to understand that perhaps you don't want a relationship or your only relationship to be with a large bank. You need to do something with the small banks. And lastly, I would say for this month, where I've actually been featuring Black-owned funds, because we all know that there's a dearth of investment in the venture capital area for Black businesses. And so we're pushing that. Look outside, to Harlem Capital. There's Serena Ventures. There's Diversity, I think, Capital or Impact Fund, Fearless Fund. These are funds that are run by Black women or minorities that understand that capital needs to be infused into spaces where there is no capital, and that's with our Black businesses.
And as we round out our discussion today on creativity, what role does creativity play in remaining competitive in today's landscape?
Oh gosh. It's huge, obviously. Even in my space, I cannot be the traditional cookie cutter chamber. And so you always have to look at things, one, I think, from various perspectives, whether you're a chamber leader or a business owner. You look at it from the customer experience. How can you make that a better experience? How can you infuse, whether it be tech or partner, to expand what your offerings, what you're offering your customers? As the chamber, I find we have to be creative so that we're always on the cutting edge we're always doing our research. And that's one thing I do, I bring forth from my legal career, doing that research to understand what is happening now, how it is impacting our business community, and what we need to do as a chamber to make sure we're bringing that information, these new trends to the forefront, and ensuring that our small businesses are partaking, they're participating, and therefore able to capitalize off of these new innovations in the market. So you die. If you're not evolving, you're gonna die. That's just the truth.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Shaheewa, for this conversation.
No problem. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
That was Shaheewa Jarrett Gelin, the founder and president of Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to hear more CEOs and thought leaders share their opinions and advice on today's business climate. Until next time, I'm Abby Maloney, and this has been Invest Insights. Thanks for tuning in.